As a result of the failed beer hall putsch, the Nazi Party was banned in Bavaria. In a meeting with the Prime Minister of Bavaria, Heinrich, held on January 4, 1925, Hitler agreed to respect the state's authority and promised that he would seek political power only through the democratic process. The meeting paved the way for the ban on the Nazi Party to be lifted on February 16th. However, after an inflammatory speech he gave on February 27th, Hitler was banned from public speaking again by the Bavarian authorities, a ban that remained in place until 1 year later in 1927. To advance his political ambitions in spite of the ban, Hitler appointed Gregor Strasser, Otto Strasser, and Joseph Goebbels to organize and grow the Nazi Party in northern Germany. The stock market in the United States crashed on October 24th, 1929. The impact in Germany was bad as millions were thrown out of work and several major banks collapsed. Hitler and the Nazi Party prepared to take advantage of the emergency to gain support for their party. They promised to end the Versailles Treaty, strengthen the economy, and provide jobs. The moderate political parties were increasingly unable to stem the tide of extremism. The German referendum of 1929 helped to elevate Nazi ideology. The Nazi Party rose from obscurity to win 18.3% of the vote and 107 parliamentary seats in the 1930 election, becoming the second largest party in parliament. Hitler made a prominent appearance at the trial of two army officers, Lieutenants Richard Scheringer and Hans Luden, in late 1930. Both were charged with membership in the Nazi Party, at that time illegal for army members. Prosecution argued that the Nazi Party was an extremist party. Who could have guessed? Prompting defense lawyer Hans Frank to call on Hitler to testify. On September 25, 1930, Hitler testified his party would pursue political power only through democratic elections, which won him many supporters among the officers. Though Hitler had terminated his Austrian citizenship in 1925, he did not become a German citizen for almost 7 years. This meant that he was stateless, legally unable to run for public office, and still faced the risk of deportation. Man, it's kind of weird to think of Hitler as a refugee. On February 25, 1932, the Interior Minister of Brunswick, Dietrich Klages, who was a member of the Nazi Party, appointed Hitler as an administrator for the state's delegation to the Reichsrat in Berlin, making Hitler a citizen of Germany. Hitler ran against Hindenburg in the 1932 presidential elections. A speech to the Industry Club in Dusseldorf on January 27, 1932, won him support from many of Germany's most powerful industrialists. Hindenburg had support from various nationalist, monarchist, Catholic, and Republican parties, and some social democrats. Hitler came in second in both rounds of the election, garnering more than 35% of the vote in the final election. Although he lost to Hindenburg, this election established Hitler as a strong force in German politics. The absence of an effective government prompted two influential politicians, Franz von Papen and Alfred Hugenberg, along with several other industrialists and businessmen, to write a letter to Hindenburg. The signers urged Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as the leader of a government independent from parliamentary parties. Hindenburg reluctantly agreed to appoint Hitler as chancellor after two further parliamentary elections in July and November 1932, which had not resulted in the formation of a majority government. Hitler headed a short-lived coalition government formed by the Nazi Party and Hugenberg's party, the German National People's Party. On January 30th, 1933, the new cabinet was sworn in during a brief ceremony in Hindenburg's office. The Nazi Party gained 3 posts. Hitler was named Chancellor, Wilhelm Frick, Minister of the Interior, and Hermann Göring, Minister of the Interior for Prussia. As Chancellor, Hitler worked against attempts by the Nazi Party's enemies to build a majority government. Because of the political stalemate, he asked Hindenburg to again dissolve the Reichstag, and elections were scheduled for early March. On February 27, 1933, the Reichstag building was set on fire. Göring blamed the communists because Dutch communist Marinus van der Lubbe was found suspiciously inside the burning building. At Hitler's urging, Hindenburg responded with a Reichstag fire decree of February 28th, which suspended basic rights and allowed detention without trial. Activities of the German Communist Party were suppressed, and some 4,000 German Communist Party members were arrested. In addition to political campaigning, the Nazi Party engaged in paramilitary violence and the spread of anti-communist propaganda in the days preceding the elections. On Election Day, March 6, 1933, the Nazi Party share of the vote increased to 43.9%, and the party acquired the largest number of seats in parliament. To achieve full political control despite not having an absolute majority in parliament, Hitler's government brought the Enabling Act to a vote in the newly elected Reichstag. The act would give Hitler's cabinet the power to enact laws without the consent of the Reichstag for 4 years. These laws could deviate from the constitution. Since it would affect the constitution, the enabling act required a two-thirds majority to pass. Leaving nothing to chance, the Nazis used the provisions of the Reichstag fire decree to arrest all 81 communist deputies and prevent several social democrats from attending. On March 23, 1933, the Reichstag assembled at the Kroll Opera House. Ranks of Sturmabteilung men served as guards inside the building, while larger groups outside, opposing the proposed legislation, shouted slogans and threats toward the arriving members of parliament. The position of the Centre Party, the third largest party in the Reichstag, was decisive. After Hitler verbally promised party leader Ludwig Kaas that Hindenburg would retain his power of veto, Kaas announced the Centre Party would support the Enabling Act, maybe because, there were guards and all that. But anyways, the act passed by a vote of 441 to 84, which totally wasn't rigged, with all parties except the Social Democrats voting in favor. The Enabling Act, along with the Reichstag fire decree, transformed Hitler's government into a legal dictatorship. Having achieved full control over the legislative and executive branches of government, Hitler and his allies began to suppress the remaining opposition, and the Social Democratic Party was banned. While many trade union delegates were in Berlin for May Day activities, Sturmabteilung stormtroopers demolished union offices across the country. On May 2, 1933, all trade unions were forced to dissolve and their leaders were arrested, and some were sent to concentration camps, which I'm sure wouldn't continue in the future. The German Labour Party Front was formed as an umbrella organization to represent all workers, administrators, and company owners, thus reflecting the concept of National Socialism in the spirit of Hitler's People's Community. By the end of June, the other parties had been intimidated into disbanding. This included the Nazis' coalition party, the German National People's Party, so with the Sturmabteilung's help, Hitler forced its leader Hugenberg to resign on June 29th. On July 14, 1933, the Nazi Party was declared the only legal political party in Germany. The demands of the Sturmabteilung for more political and military power caused anxiety among many leaders. In response, Hitler purged the entire Sturmabteilung leadership the Night of the Long Knives, which took place from June 30th to July 2nd, 1934. Hitler targeted Ernst Röhm and other Sturmabteilung leaders who, along with a number of Hitler's political adversaries, were rounded up, arrested, and shot. While the international community and some Germans were shocked by the murders, many in Germany believed Hitler was restoring order. On August 2, 1934, Hindenburg died. The previous day, the cabinet had enacted the law concerning the highest state office of the Reich. This law stated that upon Hindenburg's death, the office of president would be abolished and its powers merged with those of the chancellor. Hitler thus became head of state as well as head of government and was formally named as Führer. With this action, Hitler eliminated the last legal remedy by which he could be removed from office. As head of state, Hitler became commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Immediately after Hindenburg's death, the traditional loyalty oath of soldiers was changed to affirm loyalty to Hitler personally, by name rather than to the office of commander-in-chief. On August 19th, the merger of the presidency with its chancellorship was approved by 88% of the electorate voting in a plebiscite. Seems a little suspicious. Anyways, in early 1938, Hitler used blackmail to consolidate his hold over the military by instigating the Blomberg-Fritsch affair. Hitler forced his war minister, Field Marshal Werner von Blomberg, to resign by using a police dossier that showed that Blomberg's new wife had a record for prostitution. Army Commander Colonel General Werner von Fritsch was removed after the Schutzstaffel produced allegations that he was gay. Both men had fallen into disfavor because they objected to Hitler's demand to make the German army ready for war as early as 1938. Hitler assumed Blomberg's title of commander-in-chief, thus becoming the personal commander of the armed forces. On the same day, 16 generals were stripped of their commands and 44 more were transferred, and all were suspected of not being sufficiently pro-Nazi. By early February 1938, 12 more generals had been removed. Unemployment fell from 6 million in 1932 to 1 million in 1936. Hitler oversaw one of the largest infrastructure improvement campaigns in German history, leading to the construction of dams, autobahns, railroads, and other civil works. Hitler's government sponsored architecture on an immense scale. Despite a threatened multi-nation boycott, Germany hosted the 1936 Olympic Games. Hitler participated at the opening ceremonies and attended events at both the Winter Games in Garmisch-Partenkirchen and the Summer Games in Berlin. In a meeting with German military leaders on February 3, 1933, Hitler spoke for conquest for Lebensraum in the East and its ruthless Germanization as his ultimate foreign policy objectives. In March, Prince Bernhard Wilhelm von Bülow issued a statement of major foreign policy aims. Anschluss with Austria, the restoration of Germany's national borders of 1914, rejection of the military restrictions under the Treaty of Versailles, the return of the former German colonies in Africa, and a German zone of influence in Eastern Europe. But even with all those goals, Hitler found that those goals were not enough. Now, Germany withdrew from the League of Nations and the World Disarmament Conference in October 1933. In January 1935, over 90% of the people of the Saarland, then under the League of Nations administration, voted to unite with Germany. That March, Hitler announced an expansion of the German army to 600,000 members, which was 6 times the number allowed by the Versailles Treaty, including developing an air force and increasing the size of the navy. The United Kingdom, France, Italy, and the League of Nations bravely condemned these violations of the treaty and did nothing. The Anglo-German Naval Agreement of June 18th allowed German tonnage to increase to 35% of that of the British Navy. Germany reoccupied the demilitarized zone in the Rhineland in March 1936 in violation of the Versailles Treaty. Hitler also sent troops to Spain to support General Franco during the Spanish Civil War after receiving an appeal for help in July 1936. At that same time, Hitler continued his efforts to create an Anglo-German alliance. In August 1936, in response to a growing economic crisis caused by his rearmament efforts, Hitler ordered Goering to implement a 4-year plan to prepare Germany for war within the next 4 years. Count Galeazzo Ciano, foreign minister of Mussolini's government, declared an axis between Germany and Italy, and on November 25th, Germany signed the Anti-Comintern Pact with Japan. The United Kingdom, China, Italy, and Poland were also invited to join the Anti-Comintern Pact, but only Italy signed in 1937. Hitler then abandoned his plan of an Anglo-German alliance. At a meeting in the Reich Chancellery with his foreign ministers and military chiefs that November, Hitler restated his intention of acquiring Lebensraum for the German people. He ordered preparations for war in the East to begin as early as 1938 and no later than 1943. He felt that a severe decline in living standards in Germany as a result of the economic crisis could only be stopped by military aggression aimed at seizing Austria and Czechoslovakia. Hitler urged quick actions before the United Kingdom and France gained a permanent lead in the arms race. From early 1938 onwards, Hitler was carrying out a foreign policy ultimately aimed at war. In February 1938, on the advice of his newly appointed foreign minister, the strongly pro-Japanese Joachim von Ribbentrop, Hitler ended the Sino-German alliance with China to instead enter into an alliance with a more modern and powerful Japan. Hitler announced German recognition of Manchukuo, the Japanese-occupied state in Manchuria, and renounced German claims to the foreign colonies in the Pacific held by Japan. Hitler ordered an end to arms shipments to China and recalled all German officers working with the Chinese army. On March 12, 1938, Hitler announced the unification of Austria with Germany in the Anschluss. Hitler then turned his attention to the German population of the Sudetenland region for Czechoslovakia. On March 28 and 29, 1938, Hitler held a series of secret meetings in Berlin with Konrad Henlein of the Sudeten German Party, the largest of the German parties of the Sudetenland. The men agreed that Henlein would demand increased autonomy for Sudeten Germans from the Czechoslovakian government, thus providing an excuse for German invasion. In April 1938, Hitler told the foreign minister of Hungary that whatever the Czechoslovakian government might offer, he'd always raise higher demands and that he wanted to sabotage an agreement by any means, because this was the only way to blow up Czechoslovakia quickly. In private, Hitler considered the Sudeten issue unimportant, and his real goal was a war against Czechoslovakia. In April, Hitler ordered preparations for Case Green, the code name for an invasion of Czechoslovakia. As a result of intense French and British diplomatic pressure, on September 5th, Czechoslovakian President Edvard Beneš unveiled the fourth plan for constitutional reorganization of his country, which agreed to most of Henlein's demands for Sudeten autonomy. Germany was so dependent on imported oil, so confrontation with the United Kingdom over the Czechoslovakian dispute could stop Germany's oil supplies. This forced Hitler to call off Case Green, originally planned for October 1st, 1938. September 29th, Hitler, Neville Chamberlain, Edouard Daladier, and Mussolini attended a one-day conference in Munich that led to the Munich Agreement, which handed over the Sudetenland districts to Germany. Chamberlain was satisfied with the Munich conference, calling the outcome peace for our time, which I'm sure would last a long time, while Hitler was angered about the missed opportunity for war in 1938. In Hitler's view, this stopped his intent of limiting British power to pave the way for the eastern expansion of Germany. On March 15, 1939, in violation of the Munich Accord and possibly as a result of the deepening economic crisis requiring additional assets, Hitler ordered the German army to invade Czechoslovakia. From Prague Castle, he proclaimed Bohemia and Moravia as a German protectorate. In private discussions in 1939, Hitler declared the United Kingdom was the main enemy to be defeated and that Poland's obliteration was a necessary goal to achieve his dreams. The eastern flank would be secured and land would be added to Germany's Lebensraum. Offended by the British guarantee on March 31st of 1939 of Polish independence, he threatened to denounce the Anglo-German naval agreement if the British continued to guarantee Polish independence, which he perceived as an encirclement policy. Poland was either to become a German satellite state or it would be neutralized in order to secure Germany's eastern flank and prevent a possible British blockade. Hitler initially favored the idea of a satellite state, but upon this rejection by the Polish government, he decided to invade and made this the main foreign policy goal of 1939. On April 3rd, Hitler ordered the military to prepare for Case White, the plan for invading Poland on August 25th. In a Reichstag speech on April 28th, he renounced both the Anglo-German naval agreement and the German-Polish non-aggression pact. Hitler was concerned that a war against Poland could result in an early war with the United Kingdom. Hitler's foreign minister and former ambassador to London, Joachim von Ribbentrop, assured him that neither UK or France would honor their commitments to Poland, which is kind of true. Therefore, on August 22nd, 1939, Hitler ordered mobilization against Poland. This plan required Soviet support, and the non-aggression pact between Germany and the Soviet Union, led by Joseph Stalin, included a secret agreement to partition Poland between the two countries. Contrary to Ribbentrop's prediction that the UK would sever Anglo-Polish ties, the UK and Poland signed the Anglo-Polish alliance on August 25, 1939. This, along with news that from Italy that Mussolini would not honor the Pact of Steel, prompted Hitler to postpone the attack of Poland from August 25th to September 1st. Hitler unsuccessfully tried to maneuver the British into neutrality by offering them a non-aggression guarantee on August 25th, but this obviously failed.